To episode 110 of Canadian Mortgage Weekly. What income do you need to buy a home? And I'm really excited to be here on Canada's only weekly video mortgage news podcast. My name is Joe Bladek, and looking forward to sharing this information with you all today. One of the things that a lot of my clients do ask me is, how much income do I need to buy a home? And it's an income that is different for everyone, depending how much debt you have, what type of credit you have. However, at the same time, there are some things I can do to share with you all today, approximately what income you need to buy a home, providing that you fit in the category that most people do fit in. So let's get right into it here on Canada's only weekly video mortgage news podcast with your host, Joe Bladek. This is episode 110, and let's get right into it. One of the things that I want to cover is what income you need to buy a house in Canada. So what income do you guys think you need to buy a house in Canada? I know that a lot of people don't know. They think that, hey, if I have good credit, if I have a good job, stable job, that I'll be able to buy a home. Well, fact is that the prices in Canada have gone up so much now that you really can't buy a home if you don't have a high enough income. And that's really unfortunate because there's a lot of clients out there that I work with that have good credit, good jobs, stable jobs, no debt. And one of the things that I'm seeing is that they're not able to buy a house today. They're just not able to get into a house, to buy a home, and they don't know why. And a lot of these folks, like I said, they have good credit, good jobs, no debt. But let's take a look at this. Let's start today with the most expensive city in Canada. Curious to know if you guys think that you know what the most expensive city in Canada is. Put a note below in the comments section. But let me get into the most expensive city and what income you need to buy a home today. And this is all assuming as well that you need a mortgage. But this is as of October of 2022, and that is Vancouver. Vancouver is the most expensive city in Canada, and the income required to purchase a home in Vancouver, which is, let's see here, worth $1 million. This is an average price home in Vancouver for $1 million. Can you guess what income is needed to buy an average price Vancouver home? If you have a guess for that, put an answer in the comments below. But to buy a home in Vancouver for $1 million with a mortgage, you're going to need an income of $221,000. That is a massive income. That assumes that, say, there's two people in that family working. They both have a salary of over $100,000, and that you have a decent sized down payment as well on top of that. So that's to buy the average price home in Vancouver with a mortgage. So if you know anyone buying a home in Vancouver these days, they're in a good spot because obviously they're making a good income. All right, let's take a look at city number 2 today. What income do you guys think? And feel free to leave a comment as well in the chat here. I'll be monitoring the chat. But the income that you need to buy a home in Toronto, that would be the next city, next costliest city here. And Toronto, the average price home is just under $1 million as well. Let's see here. Actually, Toronto will be $1.148 million. Vancouver was a little bit higher. But yes, Toronto, let's look at that here today. Toronto, you would need an income of $212,000 to buy an average price home in Toronto. So that alone is also a very crazy number. If you need a mortgage these days and you have a decent sized down payment, keep in mind that if you're buying a home over $1 million, you need 20% down. So what is that? it's over $200,000. So you have $200,000, you don't have any debt, and you have good credit. You're going to still need an income, a family income of $212,000 to buy the average price home in Toronto. So again, if you know anyone buying a home in Toronto these days, good for them. They're in a good spot. It's really hard to get into a house in Toronto these days for the average priced home. All right, let's look at some homes that are under $1 million now. We're looking at an average price of $915,000. Can anyone guess what city that is? Drop a comment below if you're watching on YouTube or if you're watching on Twitter or Facebook. What city is next for $915,000? All right, that city would be Victoria, British Columbia. So to buy an average price home in Victoria, British Columbia, which is $915,000, which is similar now to some of the homes I'm seeing in Barrie, Ontario these days, where I'm more locally located, you would need an average family income of $179,000. Wow. So this is Victoria, British Columbia. This is an island just off the coast of Vancouver. You need a ferry to get over to Victoria, British Columbia. You will need an income of $179,000 to buy the average price home in Victoria, BC. That is quite a huge amount. I don't even understand how anyone is earning $179,000 in Victoria, BC. That would probably be the top 1%. But imagine this, you have two people working in that home. Maybe one person is making $100,000 salary and the other person is making an $80,000 salary. So if you're both making $180,000, to buy an average price home, you're actually maxing out your affordability. You could end up being house poor because you're maxing out your affordability just to get the average price home in Victoria, British Columbia. All right, so we've looked at Vancouver, Toronto, Victoria. Let's look at the next most expensive city on the list today. Can anyone guess what that city is? Drop a comment below if you're watching on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. Love to see what your comments are. All right, so the next most expensive city in Canada, Hamilton. So Hamilton has an average price home of $837,000. How crazy is that? $837,000 to buy an average price home in Toronto. So what income do you need to buy an average price home in Hamilton? You're probably wondering, hey, Hamilton is not that expensive. I know that I lived in Hamilton, 15, 20 years ago. I went to school in Hamilton at McMaster. I remember the homes in West Hamilton were selling for between $150,000 to $250,000. Now they're selling the average price home for $837,000. So to buy the average price home in Hamilton for $837,000, you would need a family income of $165,000. Another massive income, those are 2 full-time salaries for most average families, and those are 2 full-time salaries at the high end. So say you have 2 nurses or 2 teachers that have good tenure, or maybe a professor and another teacher, or 2 pharmacists. Those are very high incomes, and this requires you to have no debt and good credit, and you can afford a home of $837,000, and that's Hamilton. So we've looked at Vancouver, Toronto, Victoria, Hamilton. What's the next city? So number 5 on our list would be Ottawa, Ontario. And this is, again, as of October of 2022. We're looking here at the average income required to purchase a home in Canada. This is after the prices have gone down since the peak in February. Now, mind you, because prices have gone down doesn't necessarily mean that Canadians can afford more home right now. A lot of the cases are they can afford less home right now just because interest rates have gone the other direction to make up for the price decrease. So the average priced home in Ottawa right now is $631,000. Wow, $631,000 to purchase the average price home in Ottawa. And what income do you need for that? Do you think it's still over $100,000 for that family income? Yes, you require a family income of at least $128,000 to buy the average price home in Ottawa. So again, that's two people making, $65,000, $70,000 a year salary. That is that family not having any car loans. That is that family not having any debt other than just maybe a few $100s left on a credit card. That's no furniture loans. That's with a down payment that is fairly significant as well. 20% down. What would 20% down be in this case? $631,000. $126,200. Wow. So $128,000 family income to buy an average price home in Ottawa. Let's look at the next city. We've looked at 5 cities now. Vancouver being at the top of the list, Toronto second, Victoria, Hamilton, Ottawa. What's next on our list? All right, we have Calgary. Calgary is coming in with an average priced home of $513,000. We're getting into something a little bit more modest now. Modest pricing, I guess. I mean, $513,000, I think, is still quite a lot of money. Drop a comment below if you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter about what you think about the average price home in Canada. But let's look at Calgary. Calgary's $513,000. $513,000, you need to have an income of 100. Guess here, 100 and what? $107,000 to buy the average price home in Calgary. So again, that's not really a one-person income anymore. That requires that both you and your partner work, or perhaps you have a whole family going in on the mortgage. You have mom, dad, son works full time. Maybe daughter works full time, so the 4 of you all make $30,000 each. So you're buying close to the top end of your budget. Quite a lot of income required just to buy the average price home in Calgary. All right, but still less than half the income required to buy the average price home in Vancouver, which again was $221,000 was required in income to buy the average price home worth just over $1 million in Vancouver. Okay, let's look at next here. Next, we have Montreal. We're still over $500,000 here for an average price home. We're looking at $505,000 for the average price home in Montreal. The average price home is $505,000. What income do you guys think is required to purchase the average price home in Montreal? Do you guys still think it's over $100,000? And again, this is folks that have no debt, no car loans. They have great credit and a stable job. What kind of income do you think you need to buy a home in Montreal? Usually touted as one of the more affordable cities in Canada. All right, you'll still need an income of over $100,000. You'll need an income of $105,000 minimum to buy the average price home in Montreal. So imagine that. That would be 2 income earners full-time making $60,000 each, and you're buying at the top end of your budget. The top end of your budget just to buy the average price home. Wow. Something that I want to throw out there, if you're struggling to purchase a home and you're looking for some ideas on how to get into the average price home, again, some things you can do so you can get the whole family on the mortgage. Mom, dad, son, daughter, all you guys are working and you can go on the mortgage together. Co-signers work. If you can get grandpa that's making a pension onto your mortgage, she can help you, or grandma, she can help you with her pension, just get on that mortgage just to boost that income that you have going into your mortgage application. All right, let's see if we can find a city where the income required to buy the average price home is less than $100,000. Let's move on here. Halifax. All right, the East Coast, Nova Scotia. Let's take a look at what kind of income is required to buy the average price home here, which is, can you guys guess? Can you guys guess the average price home in Halifax? Average price home in Halifax is $485,000. $485,000 to buy the average price home in Halifax. Wow. Still quite a lot. Let's see what type of income you would need as a family to get into the average price home in Halifax. All right. The income needed to buy the average price home in Halifax would still be over $100,000. We are clocking in at $102,000 with a 20% down payment to purchase a home in Halifax with today's interest rates. Wow. Wow. Who is making $102,000 while living in Halifax? You know, if you are a single person, good luck to you in Halifax. Good luck to you in any of the cities that we've covered so far on this podcast today, because it becomes extremely difficult in today's market as a single person with no help, almost impossible here, to get into just the average price Canadian home. Whether it's Halifax or any of the other cities we've looked at so far, which is Montreal, Calgary, Ottawa, Hamilton, Victoria, Toronto, Vancouver. But there's more. We have a few more cities left. We're going to see if we can get a single person into a home in Canada today. All right. Next on the list. All right. Edmonton, Alberta, home of the Edmonton Oilers. Wayne Gretzky played in the Edmonton Oilers, if you remember that. I remember watching him play on the Edmonton Oilers. I was a little kid back then. What kind of income do you guys think is required to buy a house in Edmonton? Not the cheapest house, not the most expensive, but the average home in Edmonton. All right, let's take a look at the average home in Edmonton, Ontario. To buy a home in Edmonton, Ontario, all right, you will be paying, let's see here. For a home in Edmonton, Ontario, you will be paying $372,000 for an average price home in Edmonton, Ontario. Wow, that's at today's market. This is after the house prices have gone down quite significantly since February 2022, and something that will require a family income minimum of $82,000. All right, so we've hit our first city where we can buy a home with an income of under $100,000, and that would be Edmonton, Alberta. Yes, fantastic. That is great. So Edmonton, Alberta, $82,000 to buy the average price home. What else do we have here? What other cities can we buy a home? So $82,000. Let's look at that income. $82,000 is quite a bit of income. However, $82,000 also is an income that one person can attain in Edmonton. You know, a lot of folks do work in the oil fields in Edmonton, and they may be able to earn $82,000 for their one job. And they would need a 20% down payment, and they would need to be able to have good credit as well as the down payment and full-time salary, stable job, $82,000. But there's more. Let's see if we can get to the cheapest home in Canada. What city do you guys think right now is the cheapest home in Canada? Feel free to drop a comment below. We're looking at big cities, guys. One of the biggest cities here in Canada, the cheapest city, we have Winnipeg. Winnipeg's clocking in with an average price home of $337,000. So that's pretty significant. It's a great price to get into the market. That is a price that I haven't seen for years in Ontario, in Barrie and Orillia, where we broadcast from. I haven't seen that price in years. In Barrie and Orillia, we look at average price homes in the $700,000 to $900,000 range, which if we look at what the average price income would be for a home priced in the $700,000 to $900,000, you would pretty much need an income of $170,000 to buy a home in Barrie or Orillia with a 20% down payment, which is very significant. But in Winnipeg, one single person can buy a home. You would need an income of $75,000 to buy the average price home in Winnipeg, worth $337,000. So that's the lowest price city that I have on my list today. Lowest price big city. It's quite a stretch, though, if we look at homes priced from Winnipeg, which is $337,000, all the way, Hamilton, $837,000, Toronto, what was Toronto here? Toronto's $1.148 million for the average price home. And Vancouver was, Toronto was actually $1.098 million, and Vancouver was $1.148 million. So big changes here, and quite a difference in incomes required to purchase a home across Canada, and quite a disparity. So again, if you're looking to help get yourself into a home today and you have that significant down payment, saving more down payment won't necessarily get you into that home any quicker. It's the income that the lenders and banks and credit unions are concerned about these days. They need to make sure that they see you have an income. They need to make sure that you have that income to be able to support that mortgage. And with that, Winnipeg and Edmonton are the only cities that I believe in Canada, the only big cities I believe in Canada, that a single person can still purchase a home with 20% down. Winnipeg clocking in with a minimum income required of $75,000 to purchase just the average home in Winnipeg. And in Edmonton clocking in at an income of $85,000 for an average price home of $372,000. And that's just the average price home. I mean, in Barrie and Orillia, to buy an average price home here, you're looking at around $700,000 to $800,000, maybe $900,000, in that range. You're going to need an income without any car loans or debt, really, of $170,000. So anyone buying a house today and requiring a mortgage, they're making a good income. That, or they are having co-signers on with them on that mortgage. That's the only way. Or they have sold and bought with a very small mortgage, because there's no other way you can really get into a house these days in Canada on your own without a co-signer or without a significant down payment. It's just not possible. Not possible at all. So let's take a look at some of the other data I'm seeing today here. I want to go over some of the market data that I commonly report here on Canadian Mortgage Weekly. My name is Joe Bladek. Canadian Mortgage Weekly is Canada's only video mortgage news podcast. Let's look in the data here. And as you are watching the rates below, keep in mind that these rates are as of December the 1st, 2022, and they can change at any moment. But let's look at some of the data here that I'm going over. 5-year Canadian bond yield. one of the things that I've really been tracking is this Canadian bond yield. And the reason why I track the 5-year Canadian bond yield is that the banks tend to follow this for 5-year fixed rates. So if you see this 5-year Canadian bond yield going up, as it did here, 5-year fixed interest rates were going up. And what happened here? Well, since about October here, it's been going down. So this is since the last rate announcement, October 28th, 2022. The bond yield has been going down. And what have I noticed? And you'll see it in my rates below. The 5-year fixed rate has gone down slightly. What great news is that? In a rate increasing environment, the 5-year fixed has been dropping. And I'm not sure if this is going to be a trend that's going to continue here. However, I do see here the peak in October, and we've gone down since then. And this low point here was August, September, back up to October, back down now. So we'll have to see what banks do with the fixed rates going forward, and we'll have to see what the bond yield does as well going forward. All right, what do we have here on the inflationary side? This is as of October 2022. We saw inflation, the increasing in prices, the speed of which the price increases were happening, peaked in June of 2022. Since June of 2022, the speed in which prices increase on goods and services has slowed down slightly, but is still happening at quite a tremendous rate compared to what we usually see of 2%. So things are still increasing in price. However, it's slowed down in the speed that everything is increasing at. American inflation, also the speed of which things have been going down. Increasing in price has also gone down quite significantly, but still at a rate of 7.7% here. So we'll have to see what happens going forward with next month's numbers on inflation. So Canada and the United States here, respectively. We'll have to see what happens here. Again, the speed in which things are increasing, goods and services, still happening, but the speed of which they were increasing in price peaked in June. Things are still increasing in price since June 2022. However, the speed in which things are increasing in price has slowed down just slightly. The Bank of Canada really wants to bring the speed in which things are going up in price down to 2%, which they have a lot of work to do. CDOR rate is what I use here to track variable rate interest mortgages. This CDOR rate had been going up quite significantly since January of 2022. We saw the climb here go up quite dramatically, pop here in October where we had that rate increase. And we've kind of flatlined here since October. So it's interesting to see that. We haven't had a flatlining here since about last time we saw it was early January. So we'll have to see what happens with prime rate. On December the 7th, we have a Bank of Canada rate announcement coming up on December 7th at 10 a.m. I'll be reporting that live here on Canadian Mortgage Weekly, which is Canada's only weekly video mortgage news podcast. We'll be doing a pre-rate show at the rate announcement just before, actually. I'll start airing it at 10 minutes beforehand. We'll review some of the news articles and data that has been leading up to the rate announcement. And we'll just see what everyone's talking about. Right now, I'm hearing a lot of mortgage brokers in my field say a 0.5% increase is expected on December the 7th. I'm actually expecting a 0.25% increase, a little lower. And that's simply because of the charts that we looked at. The bond yield has been falling, which has indicated that fixed rates will start to fall, which they have at some lenders already. I've seen small decreases on 5-year fixed rates at some lenders. And we'll see how the interest rates go in December of 2022. Current overnight rate sits at 3.75%, and prime rate is at 5.2%. 1.95. All right, let's look now at the averaged house price in Canada. All right, so the average house price in Canada has been increasing steadily now for the last 3 months. We did see a peak here in February of 2022, and since the peak we saw prices drop dramatically through the spring and summer, and then they took back off here in August. And since August, they've been going up in price. We've seen a price increase in August 2022 of 1.5%, a price increase in September nationally of 0.44%, and a price increase nationally in October of 0.65%. So what do you guys think about that? Feel free to leave a note in the comments below as to, do you think prices will continue to increase through the winter Christmas months here for houses? Or do you think we will turn back around and start heading back south here? Very interested to hear what you guys will say about the Canadian national house price. Again, we did see that decrease since February of 2022 to August 2022. We saw a dramatic price drop. That's when I saw a lot of investors contact me and wanted to get into the market. And since then, the prices actually have been increasing slightly, 1.5% in August, 0.44% in September, and 0.65% in October. So the average Canadian home right now sits at $644,643. And the average income required to get into the average price home right now is about $160,000 in Canada. That's a family income with no car loans, good credit, and stable employment. So if you have car loans or whatever, that's going to drop your affordability. Typical car loans will drop your affordability by about $100,000. All right. So we'll wait for the next month's numbers to come out. If you have any questions here for me, you can contact me right there at 705-238-3479. That's my direct office line. As well, you can email me or hit me up on social media. Make sure you follow, like, comment, and share on this video. I would love to get this video out to my friends and family. And I do these videos here just to help the average Canadian homeowner be able to be educated and empowered to be able to buy their own home or to be able to refinance their own mortgage. Again, my name is Joe Bladek, the host of Canadian Mortgage Weekly, which is Canada's only weekly video mortgage news podcast for the Canadian homeowner. And remember that these rates below are subject to change at any moment and are as of today's date, which is December the 1st, 2022. Thank you for watching episode number 110. Next week, I am looking forward to covering some additional topics on how some unique people in Canada can get into a home. If you ever have any comments or suggestions for a new episode, please leave them below. I would love to hear what you want to say about that. All right, and we'll see you all later.